Hey guys, welcome back to Mr. Deep Coding channel. It's Patrick here and I hope you guys are doing great. Today we are still on the backend side and we are going to implement the post feature. So grab your social app Ktor server project, open it inside IntelliJ and let's get started. Alright, so as usual, we will start by defining a new table, and for that, you can open or expand the DAO package. Inside this DAO package, let's first create a new package. This one, we will name it as post. Now, inside this post package, we're going to create a new Kotlin file that we're going to name PostsTable. Select file and hit enter. Alright, so now as you can see here from this diagram, our post table will have a post ID, the caption that represents some description of the post, the image URL, the created date, the likes count, the comment count, and also the user who posted this post. Now back inside IntelliJ, we are going to create a new Kotlin object. Select PostsTable for the name and extend table from exposed library. Give your table a name. So we're going to give this as post. And now as we said, we will have first of all a post ID. Now this post ID will be unique. So for that you can call a unique index. Then after this post ID, we are going to have the caption. Now this caption will be a varchar and let's call this caption, and the length will be 300. Alright, so I'm going to do pretty much the same for the remaining columns, so I will fast forward this video. Now, one thing you can note here that is new is these references, which puts a foreign key, which will be from the user table, and this onDelete option cascade means simply that if this user is removed from the user's table, then we also need to remove all his posts. And the definition for the remaining columns is nothing new to you. So after defining this post table, we are going to declare here a data class that represents the post row result. So let's quickly define a new data class and I will call this post row. Now this is going to have pretty much the same attribute with two extra attributes that I will explain in a minute. Okay guys, now for this post row, I've also included the username and the user image URL. Since we are working with a relational database, we will make one query and join that with the user table when querying a post. Okay, so now after defining this post table, we need to open database factory and pass that to this schema utils create method. Okay, so next we need a data access object, and for that, inside this newly created post package, let's create a new Kotlin file. We're going to name this as PostSTableDAO. Select file and hit enter. From here, we're going to define a new interface that we'll call PostSDAO. And this interface will have 5 methods. First, let's declare the suspend function createPost. Now this create post is going to take a caption, an image URL, and lastly a user ID. It's going to return a boolean that tells us if the post was created or not. Okay, so the second method is to get feed post. And for that, we need a user ID, the user for which we want to retrieve feed post. This get feed post takes also the list of follows. Now this list represents the people that this user is following. It's gonna take also a page number and a page size. Now this is going to return a list of post row. So the third method is to get posts by user. So normally this is going to be called when we visit a user profile and we want to see the post that this user have been posting. Okay, so for that we will need a user ID and a page number and a page size as well. So this will return a list of post row as well. Now the next method is to get a single post. And for this, we just need the post ID. It will return a nullable post row. Lastly, we need a method to delete a post. This also takes in a post ID and returns a boolean. Now we can create an implementation for this PostSTable. So you need to select all the methods and click OK. Let's first implement this create post method. So we are going to first of all call dbQuery. You need to import this dbQuery. Then we need an insert statement. Now call PostsTable insert. For the post ID, we are going to call ID generator, generate ID. For the caption, we will take the caption that is passed to this create post method. For the image URL, we're going to do the same. Then the likes count and comment count will be passed to 0 by default. And lastly, we are going to pass the user ID that was passed to this create post method. Okay, now we need to call this insert statement resulted value get single or null, and we need to check that the return result is different of null. Alright, so the next method that we're going to implement is the delete post method because it's easier than the remaining. Let's first rename this as delete post. Alright. For this, we're going to call return dbQuery as usual and PostsTable.delete where we will delete where the post ID equals the post ID that was passed to this delete post. Then if this is greater than 0, that means the post was deleted successfully. Alright, so next we're going to implement the get post. First, let's call return dbQuery. Now call PostsTable.join. Other table will be user table. On column PostsTable.userID. The column for the other table is user table ID, and the type of join will be inner join. Then select. So we will select where PostsTable.postID equals the post ID, single or null. And if this is not null, then we need to call to PostRoute and pass it. Now let's quickly define this converter method. Private fun to PostRoute. So this is going to take a row result row, and it will return a post row. Alright, so as you can see here, we are mapping this result row to post row. One thing to notice here is this created at, since it's a timestamp text, we just convert it to string and then we'll send that to the client, which will do all the conversion to local date. Okay, so now we are done with this get post method. The next method that we're going to implement is get feeds post. So as usual, let's first call dbQuery. So to retrieve feed post for the current user, whenever this follows list has only one item, that means that this user has not followed anyone yet. And the ID that was passed to this list is the ID of the current user, because when retrieving the post, we also want to include this user's post. So for that, let's first of all check if follows.size is greater than 1. So in that case, let's call PostsTable join. The other table is the user table. On column PostsTable.userID, the other column comes from user table and it's user table.id. Join type will be inner join. And then we can call select. So we will select where PostsTable PostsTable.userID is in this list, which list is the follows list. Then call order by. We will use the PostsTable.created@column, and the order will be descending order. Next, call limit, and for the number of posts we want to retrieve, that is going to be the page size. And for the offset, so here we need to call page number -1 times the page size, and call to long. And we need to map the result to PostRoute, and we'll pass it. Else, we need to call PostsTable join as well. Other table will be the user table on column PostsTable.userID. The other column will come from the user table. The join type. Then we need to select all, so call select all, and the order, we will change that. So the order will be on this likes count column. So the reason we want to order by likes count is we want to show popular posts to the user if they haven't followed anyone yet. Alright, so let's quickly implement the getPostByUser method, which is our last method of this PostSDAO. Let's first of all call DB query, then call PostsTable join. The other table will be user table on column PostsTable.userID. The other column will be user table ID. The join type will be inner join. Next, call select. So we will select where PostsTable.userID equals this user ID. Then we need to order by. The column will be PostsTable.createdDate. The order will be sort order descending. For the limit, the number will be the page size, and the offset will be page number -1 times the page size to long. Lastly, we want to map that to PostRoute and pass it. So one thing that you can see here is that I pretty much repeated the same code except for this select method. So you can see that this one has pretty much the same select query. So one thing that we can do is to extract this to a private method. So you can cut that, and right above this to PostRoute, we're going to create a private function that we will call getPosts. Now this will need a list of users, the page size, the page number, and it's going to return a list of PostRoute, and we will just paste that query. We're going to check if the post.userID is in this users list. Alright, and now from here we're just going to call this getPost. For the users, we'll pass follows. For the page size and page number, the same thing here, we're just going to call getPost. Okay, so I think we are done with the PostSDAO implementation. Next, we need a PostRepository. So for that, expand the repository package. Let's create a new package that we'll call post. Then inside this post package, we'll create PostRepository interface. So this PostRepository will have, first of all, a createPost method. Now this createPost method takes in image URL and also post text params. We're going to create this in a moment, and it will return a response. Now take the response from our util package. So this is going to be a response of post response. This post response, we're going to create that in a moment as well. We have a second method, getFeedPost. Now this takes in a user ID page number and a page size. Now this will return a response of type PostsResponse. Now as you can see here, this is posts plural with S at the end, and this is a single post response. Now you'll see the difference when we create both of them. Okay, then we're going to get post by user. Now for this, we first of all need post owner ID. Then we need to know the current user ID. We need a page number as well as a page size. And this will return a response of type PostsResponse. Then we have another method to get a single post. We need to pass the post ID and the current user ID as well. So this is going to return a response of type PostResponse. Then lastly, we have delete post, which takes in a post ID and return a response of type PostResponse. Okay, so let's quickly create these parameters and responses classes. So for that, expand the model package and let's create a new Kotlin file that will name post. Select file and hit enter. So first of all, we need a data class that is the text params. Let's just copy this. Post text params. We need to get the caption. This is the description of the post. And we also need to know the user who is posting. So we'll get the user ID. Alright, here we also need a model for the post. Alright, so as you can see, for this post data class model, we now include two extra attributes. The first one is liked. This is a boolean which tells us if the current user has liked this post or not. And the other one is this is own post boolean if the current post belongs to the current user. Now we need a post response model. Now this post response will have first of all a success boolean which tells us if the request was successful or not. Then we have a post. Now this is going to be nullable and the default value will be null. We have a message in case something went wrong, so we need to tell the user what happened. It's a nullable string and the default value is null. Now lastly, we have post response. This is the response model for when a user wants to get the feed post or want to get post for a particular user. For example, when navigating to a user profile, we will show the posts that belong to the user. These also have a success. And now the difference here is this post, which will be a list of posts. And it will have a message as well. Alright, so for this list of posts, we're going to pass an empty list by default. Now you need to add the serializable annotation. Now back in PostRepository.kt, import post text params, post response, and posts response. Okay, so now we need an implementation for this post repository interface. Select all the method and click OK. Now let's quickly implement the create post method. Alright, so here we need a variable post is created. For this we're going to, I forgot to add that. So here we need the PostDAO. So let's have this private val PostDAO. We will also need the user DAO. Now post is created. This will come from PostDAO. Then call create post. For the caption, we will pass post text param dot caption. For the image URL, pass the image URL. For the user ID, pass post text params dot user ID. Now we want to check if this post was created. So if post is created, in that case we want to return a success response. So call response success. So the data will be post response, single post response, like so, and we'll just pass success equals true. Now we won't pass the other values because the client just want to know if the post was created or not. Else, so if the post was not created, then we want to return an error response. So for the code, we'll just pass internal server error, and for the data, we will return a new post response. Success will be false, and since the request was not successful, we want to return a message telling the user what happened. So here we're just going to tell them that the post could not be inserted in the DB. You can customize this error message. Alright, so we need to call return from this if statement. That's it for this create post. Next, we are going to quickly implement the delete post. Okay, so for this delete post, the logic is pretty much the same. I think we can even copy this. We'll change something, and so this is post is deleted. We call it as post deleted. Then we need to call delete post. We want to pass the post ID as post ID. Then we will check if post is deleted and the responses are the same. If the post was deleted, then we want to return success true. Else, we'll change this message. Post could not be deleted from the database. Alright, so for the remaining three methods, the implementation should return a response that contains a post or a list of posts. Now, as you can see, for this post model, we need this isLiked information, which tells us if the current user has liked this post or not. Now, likes on a post are recorded in a different table, as you can see here from the design. We have a different table for post likes, which record the like ID, the post ID, the user who liked the post. Alright, so to be able to retrieve this isLiked information, we need to define the PostLikes table. And for that, let's first create a new package inside the DAO package. And this will be called as PostLikes. Now, inside this PostLikes, we're going to create a new Kotlin file that will name PostLikesTable. Alright, now from here, we need a new Kotlin object, PostLikesTable, that extends table from exposed. You can give your table a name. This will be PostLikes. Okay, so that's all for this PostLikesTable. Now open database factory. Next, we need a data access object for this PostLikesTable. So let's create PostLikesDAO. First, create an interface, PostLikesDAO. Now, this interface will have three methods. First of all, add like. Now, to add a new like, we need the post ID, the user ID, and this is going to return a boolean. The second method is to remove a like. Then lastly, we need a method to check if the post is already liked by a certain user. So for that, we'll define this is post liked by user. This method takes in the post ID and the user ID as well, and it will return a boolean. Great, now let's quickly go over the implementation of this PostLikesDAO. Okay, so to add a new like, let's first call this return db query, import db query. Now here as usual, we need an insert statement, PostLikesTable.insert. For the like ID, we are going to call ID generator.generateID. For the post ID, we'll pass post ID. For the user ID, we'll pass user ID as well. Then we need to call insert statement.resulted value. If this is not null, we need to then return if this is not empty. If resulted values is null, we need to return false. Now to remove a like, again, return a DB query PostLikesTable.delete where PostLikesTable.postID equals the post ID and PostLikesTable.userID equals the user ID. You can put this into parentheses as well, then import and if that is greater than 0, that means the record was removed successfully. Now the last method is PostLiked by user. Again, a DB query. So from here we need to call PostLikesTable select. So we'll select where PostLikesTable.postID equals the post ID and PostLikesTable.userID equals the user ID. We need to convert this to list and return if this list is not empty. Okay, so now we can close the PostLikesDAO and the PostLikesDAO implementation. Alright, so let's quickly add the PostLikesDAO here, private file PostLikesDAO. Then to implement this getPost method, we first of all need to get a post. And for that, we need to call PostDAO.getSinglePost and pass in the post ID. Then return if post is equal to null, we need to return an error. Error response, the code will be just internal server error and the data. For that, we're going to pass post response success false, and for the message, we would say could not retrieve post from the database. So as we need to return a success response, the data will be post response success equals true and the post. Alright, now for the post, we can't pass this post because this is a post row. Okay, so for this, we first of all need to know if the post is liked. So is post liked? We need to call PostLikesDAO. Is post liked by user? The post ID is the post ID. And we'll pass the current user ID. Then we need another information. If this is the owner of the post, if the current user is the owner of this post, and for that. Okay, now to convert from post row to post, let's quickly define a new method. Right, so after mapping the post row to post, now we can come back here, and for the post response, we are going to call to post. Post row will be this post, and for the is post liked, we'll pass is post liked. For the is own post, we're also going to pass is own post. Great, that's it for this get post. Next, let's now implement the the get feed post method. Alright, now to get the feed post, we first of all need to retrieve all the users that the current user is following. So for that, we need val following users. And for this, we need to call FollowsDao. Oops, we don't have that. Okay, so yeah, instead of this user DAO, we need to get the FollowsDao. Great, now back, we need to call FollowsDao.getFollowing. Alright, so as you can see here, we are having a problem because this getFollowing need a page number and a page size, but we can't pass this page number and page size because these are just for retrieving posts, not for retrieving following users. So we need to add one more method to the FollowsDao that will get us all the users IDs that this user is following. So for that, you can command click on this method. This will bring you to the FollowsDao.get, and inside this interface FollowsDao, we need to add one more method. This is getAllFollowings. So it needs a user ID, and it's just going to return the list of all people that this user is following. We need to provide an implementation for this. So expand the follows package and open FollowsDao implementation. As you can see, we are getting an error because we need to provide an implementation for that. Alright, so from here we need to return a DB query and call FollowsTable.select. So we will select where FollowsTable.follower ID equals the user ID, and we need to map the result by just taking the following ID. Okay, FollowsTable.following ID. Okay guys, a quick fix here. While I was implementing this getFollowing, I noticed that this getFollowing and getFollowers are not implemented as I intended to do, because for example, here we are selecting where the follower ID equal this user ID. To get the people that follow this user, we need to select where following ID equals this user, because the following ID represent the user that is being followed. Then we need to map to follower ID like so. So I think the same here, we need to select where follower ID equals this user ID. Then we need to return following ID. Alright, so now back in PostRepository, we need to call getAllFollowing, and we'll pass the user ID as user ID. Then to these following users, we need to add a new element, and for that we can call to mutable list. Then we need to add the user ID. Okay, so after obtaining these following users, we need to get post, and for that we can call this PostRows. Call PostDAO.getFeedPost. The user ID will be this user ID. Page number equals page number, and page size will be page size. Okay, one more information we need to pass is the list of following users. Great, so after obtaining these post rows, we need to map them to posts. So here we'll define a post variable and call PostRows.map. We need to map this to post. For the post row, we will pass 8. For the is post liked, we will call PostLikesTable.isPostLiked, and we'll pass the post ID as 8.postID, and the user ID is this user ID. Okay, then for the is own post, we'll check if this post the user ID equals to the current user ID, this one. So after mapping the post rows to post, we just need to return success, and the data will be posts response. Success equals true, and for the list of posts, we'll pass posts. Alright, so let's also implement the get post by user. So for this, we first of all need post rows. Let's call PostDAO.getPost by user. For the user ID, we'll pass post owner ID, and then we'll pass a page number and page size. Okay, so from here we are going to do almost the same thing. So copy that code and paste that here. So we need to check if it.user_id equals the current user ID, and here also we need to pass current user ID. Great, so that's it for this getPostByUser method. Alright guys, now after the repository we want a route to handle the request, and for that expand the route package and let's create a new Kotlin file, and we will name this as PostRoute. So from here we need an extension method to routing from Ktor, PostRouting. So from here we need the repository, so let's call this PostRepository. Great, now here you can call this authenticate block to make sure that the user that accessed this route is an authenticated user. Then we need to call a route and provide a path as post. Then we need to call the post, to which we are going to pass this /create as the path. Alright, so now since we're going to receive a multi-part data, we first of all going to declare here a file name that will initialize to an empty string. Then we need a post text params. This is a nullable and the default value is null. Then we also need this multi-part data. Call.receive multipart. So after this we need to loop through each part data. So call multipart data for each part data. So when part data so we first of all need to check when part data is PartData.FileItem. So for the case this part data is a file, then we need to save the image to our server. And to save the image to the server, I'm going to create a helper method that will help us save this file image. Alright, so inside the util package, let's create a new Kotlin file that we'll name as file extension. So file ext, select file and hit enter. So from here we need an extension method to PartData.FileItem. So this extension method we call that as SaveFile. So to this SaveFile function we need to provide a folder path, and this is going to return a string. Alright, so from here we need a file name, and for that we are going to call uuid.random unique user identifier to string and append a dot, and then we need the file extension. So for that you can call this file, select java.io. So let's call original name as string, then call extension. Okay, we don't need this to string. So we'll have a random unique user identifier and the file extension appended to that. So don't forget this dot here. Alright, so then we need the byte array. So we'll have this file byte. So for this we need to call a stream provider dot read byte. Then we are going to make a directory. For that call file and pass in the folder path, then call folder.make directory. Okay, so after all this we need to save our image. So for that we can call file. For the path we will call folder / then file name, write byte, and we'll need to pass this file byte. Lastly, we need to return file name like so. Great. Now come back inside PostRoute.get. So from here, the file name, this variable here, will be PartData.SaveFile. So for the folder path, we need to provide build/resources, then main, then static, then post images, like so. Alright, so instead of passing it this way, I'm going to extract this to a constant, cut this. So comes inside the util package. Let's create a new Kotlin file that we'll name as constant. You can directly select this as an object. From this object, we need a const file that we will name a post images folder. We can add a folder path. So we're going to paste this. We can even extract this to another constant that we will declare right before, right above this post images folder path. So we are going to name this as post images folder. Then we are going to append post images folder. Lastly, we can add one more constant, that is the base URL. So for this, since we are still working locally, so we can add this HTTP 0000 and the port is 8080. Now come back inside PostRoute.get. For the folder path, we are going to pass constants dot post images folder path. Great. So when this part data is a form item, so is part data dot form item. So in this case, we need to first of all check if part data dot name equals to post data. Since we are going to name the JSON data that will come with the file as post data, so we need to make sure that the part data that we are getting here is the post data. We can call post text params, and to convert the JSON that we receive to this post text param Kotlin object, we need to call a JSON from Kotlin x.serialization.json and decode from string. And the string value will be part data.value. Then for any other case, we want to do anything. Alright, so don't forget to call this part data.dispose for when you don't need the part data anymore. After looping through each part data, we are going to have a variable here that will name image URL. And for this image URL, we need to concatenate constant dot base URL, then constant dot post image folder, and lastly the file name. So after building this image URL from all these parts, we're going to check if we could successfully convert the JSON post data to this post text params Kotlin object. So let's check if post text params, if this is equal to null, that means we couldn't successfully convert the post data to this object. So in that case, we first of all need to make sure that we delete this file that we saved. So call file and let's provide constant dot post image folder path / then pass the file name, then call delete, like so. And after that, we need to respond call.respond. The status will be bad request, and the message will be post response success is false. Then the message would say could not parse post data. Okay, else we need to have this result that will come from repository, PostRepository.create post, passing image URL and post text params. Then code.respond result.code, and for the message you can call result.data. Okay, this is result. Alright, so I think we are done for this create route. Open plugin, then routing.kt, and we'll pass that in this block. So post routing. And then the next thing that we want to do is to provide dependencies. So open the I package here and app module.kt. Alright, so after providing the PostLikesTable, PostSTable, and PostRepository, we can now run the application and see if everything works as expected. Alright, so the app is running. I will quickly go inside Postman. Now, as you can see here, I already have this create post request, which will make a post request to this URL post/create, and I have already defined this post data. So this is just a JSON that has the user ID and a caption, so you can write whatever you want here. Now we need to pass here one more thing, and also notice that in the body I have selected this form data. So we are going to pass a new key here. That will be the file that we want to pass, and make sure to select file. Then for the value, you can click on this select files button. So I will quickly select an image, select this, and open. It is saved inside Postman, so we can now make the request. This user ID here comes from John gmail.com. You can see. What is that? Now we can hit send. Great. Now as you can see, we've got this success equals to true. Now no post or message were passed because we don't need that for creating a post. Now one thing that we can verify is that this post has been inserted in our database or not. Okay, so as you can see, we have a new post. And one thing that is interesting is this image URL with this UUID for the name, and the JPEG was the extension of the file. Now to be able to view this image URL, we need to add one more thing to the routing. Open routing.kt, you need to add this static block, then call resources static, like so. Okay, so let's rerun the app. Then we can copy this image URL. You can paste that here and hit enter. There we go, we have this image. Okay, so now we are back inside IntelliJ. Alright, so now let's implement the remaining route and we'll test them directly. So let me first close this post method. Now below this, we need a get method to get a single request. And for the path, we'll pass here first /, then we need to get the post ID. So for that, we will need the post ID to be passed as a path parameter. So for that, you need to put that inside these curly braces. So first of all, we need to get the post ID. So declare a val here post ID, and then assign that to call.parameters. and here we need to get the post ID. So since our post ID is a long, then we need to check if this is not null, then to long or null. If the value is null, then you can call this Kotlin.run, this run block. So this run block will be executed if we couldn't get a post ID or we couldn't convert the post ID that was passed to a long value. So here we need to call call.respond. So the status will be bad request, and for the message we'll pass in post response success is false, and the reason or the message is post ID parameter missing or invalid parameter. Okay, so if we could successfully get this post ID, we also need the current user ID. So this should be passed as a query parameter. So here we have val current user ID, then call.request.query parameter, and from here we will get the current user ID. So we'll do the same to long or null. So what you can notice here is that the code inside this run block will be almost the same as this code here. Call respond, bad request, and then successful, and the message of missing a parameter. So instead of repeating this again and again, I'm going to create an extension to the application call, an extension function to the application call. That way, whenever we want to extract a parameter, we also provide a response when we can't extract that parameter or the parameter is missing. So for that, I will go inside a util package. I'm going to create a new Kotlin file, and this one I will name it as call extension. All right, so from here we need a suspend function, application call from io.ktor.server.application. Then this one will be named getLong parameter. So this will take the name of the parameter, and a boolean is query parameter false by default, and this will return a long. Now the reason for this is query parameter is because what you can see here is that depending on how the parameter is passed to the URL, you will have a different method or different way of getting that. All right, so now back inside this getLong parameter. So here we have a val param, or let's call it parameter. First of all, if it's a query parameter, then get this request.query parameter, passing the name to long or null. Else we'll just call parameters, pass the name to long or null. Then if this is null, we can call this Kotlin run block, and from here we are going to copy this. We just need to respond. This is a bad request. Then we will say parameter name is missing or invalid. Then we can throw a bad request exception. And for the message, we'll pass the same message as here. Then we can return parameter. All right, now coming back here, we just need to now call.getLong parameter. So for the name, we'll pass post ID. So for the current user ID, again, getLong parameter. The name is current user ID, and is query parameter will pass through. So we can cut this and put it inside a try catch. So here we need to catch bad request error, bad request exception, then return from get. So after getting the post ID and the current user ID, we can have here another variable result, then call PostRepository.getPost. The post ID will be post ID. Then it also need the current user ID. After that, we can call .respond. So the status will be result.code and the message will be result.data. So from here also we can catch any error. This is going to be a throwable, and if we catch this error that is an unexpected error, we are going to respond. So call.respond. For the status, we will pass internal server error, and for the message, we'll pass post response success is false, and the message will be alright. So for the next route, we want a delete. So we need to delete a post, and for that the path will be post ID. So from here we can call this try catch block. Then first let's get the post ID, call dot get long parameter. The name is going to be post ID. Then we get the result from the repository, PostRepository.delete post, post ID, call.respond. The status will be result.code. The message will be result.data. So here we need to catch this bad request and any error. So we can copy and paste that here. We'll return from delete. Okay, so now we can exit this route of working with single post, create, get, and delete. We are going to create a new route. So the path will be /post with S. Okay, so from here we first of all need a get to get feed post. So here you can put /feed. So here we need to extract the current user ID, the page size, and the page number. Let's first of all call this try catch. Then for the current user ID, we can call a dot get long parameter. The name will be current user ID. Is query parameter, set that to true. Then we need a page call.request.query parameters. So here we'll pass we need to get the page query parameter, convert that to integer or null, and in case this page is null, we will set default to 0. Then we need to get the limit or the page size, call the request.query parameters to int or null. Then if this is null, we're going to pass 10. But I will extract this to a new constant. So open constant, and from here we can add a new const val default page size. So instead of passing hard-coded 10, we can call constant.default page size. Okay, now we need to get the result from the repository. So call PostRepository.getFeedPost. So the user ID will be current user ID. The page size will be page, and the page number will be the page size will be limits instead, limits, and the page number will be page. Now call.respond. The status would be result.code, and the message would be result.data. Alright, so from here we are also going to catch bad request and any error. So let's just copy this. So we'll return from get if it's a bad request. Then if it's not, we need instead to call post response. This one occurred should have one more R. Okay, so that's it for this feed. So get the path will be user ID. Alright, so from here we need to get the post owner ID. So the owner of the post we want to see. For that, call dot get long parameter. The name will be user ID. This user ID. Then we need to know who is the current user. So for that we need a current user ID. Call dot get long. Now this is going to be a query parameter. Current user ID. Maybe we can extract this to a new constant. We'll do that later. So is query parameter will pass true. The same way we need the page and the limit. Now we need to get this file result that will come from PostRepository.getPost by user. The post owner ID is post owner ID. Current user ID, passing current user ID. The page number will be page, and the page size will pass limit. Then call.respond. This is the same as here. Also these catch blocks are the same. Okay, so I think we are done with all the routes. We have all the 5 routes. The first one is to create a new post. This one to get a single post. This to delete a post. Then to get multiple posts, we have this feed endpoint, and also to get posts from a user, passing in the user ID. So let's run the app and open Postman and test. So the app is running, so I will quickly open Postman. So I already have this get single post request, delete post request, and get feed post request, and also get user post request. So what is get single post request? It looks like this. So don't worry about this. These are just the tests I was doing. So for the get single post request, we will pass this post ID and also the current user ID. So let's first log in with John. As you can see, we have this John ID. We'll copy that since it's John who created this post. You can see that this is the John ID. So it's also here as this ID. Then the post we want to retrieve, for that, I think we can let's first of all open this get feed post, because this is going to retrieve all the posts that we want to show for the current user. Okay, so here we are getting 2 posts. This one is the one I created before. This is the last post we just created. So copy the post ID and let's paste that here. So hit send. As you can see, we are getting now this post. So this get single post request is working as expected, as well as this get feed post, because as you can see, it returns all the posts from our database since we removed the relation between John and Patrick from past episode. So it just returns all the posts ordered by the number of like, but since there's no like, it just returns the 2 posts that we have in our database for now. Then the other endpoint that we want to test is the delete, to delete a single post. Now we're going to pass here the post ID that we want to delete, and if we hit, now we get a success true. All right, so we can verify that this post was deleted by going back inside this get feed post request, and now we should get only one post instead of two. So if we click send, you can see that we are just getting one post. The last endpoint is this one, get user post request. So from here we need to pass the user ID, the user for which we want to see the post, and the current user. Since it's the same user, so we'll pass just the same ID. This is the ID of John, this ID here. So normally it should just return us a single post, the one you see here. So now if we delete this post, going inside a delete post request, now pass the post ID as this one, click send. So if we go back here, we should just receive an empty post, an empty list of posts. There we go. As you can see, now this post list is empty. So the same should happen for get feed post. It's now returning an empty post. Now if we want to get a single post, it should return an error message, could not retrieve post from the database. Okay, normally we should change this message. We should change this message. It should say that could not find the post in the in the database, not retrieve but find. All right, so I think that's all we wanted to do for this post feature, and all the routes are working as expected. So we are going to stop the video here for now. I will find you in the next episode, and until then, take care. Bye.